let's talk about more of this, right? Because it goes even further into CeFi. So that's more DeFi, right? Decentralized finance. And then we have CeFi, which is your centralized finance, basically having a centralized control of a aspect of DeFi that they pass on to the end users. This can be a little bit confusing, right? So when we're talking about DeFi, we're talking about on-chain protocols that allow you to control your own keys, right? That then allow you to add liquidity, for example, or just swap, that sort of thing. So you have your swapping mechanisms, you have your liquidity pool mechanisms, and you control the keys, and that's going to put you into DeFi. If you are on a platform that just says, send us our cryptocurrency, we'll pay you out a certain percentage, then you end up in CeFi. And CeFi is where we are seeing a lot of the issues because they've made poor DeFi decisions, okay? So what you have are centralized entities that are taking end user funds, who of which didn't adhere to the principles of crypto, do not control the keys, and have entrusted these centralized entities with their cryptocurrency. They take their money and they put it into the DeFi, and they put it into extremely high leveraged positions, into positions that are not necessarily safe or sound. And they end up losing the end user's money or cryptocurrency at the end of the day. And that's what you end up with now, right? That's what we're seeing with Celsius. That's what we're seeing with now BlockFi. And BlockFi was an interesting one because early on in this cycle, BlockFi came out, and I even had an interview with them. We ran one ad for them, and then we talked about, we never actually did a sponsorship. We ran an ad for an affiliate link. I did have an affiliate link for BlockFi. And then I had deposited some in BlockFi, and then I kind of I made that mistake, right? Especially early on, pumping up this kind of, YouTube channel, kind of got going through it again. And part of my reasoning for making this mistake, and the reason I'm bringing up this whole idea of trying to, especially through a bull run, maintain your principles as it pertains to cryptocurrency, is that I've made this mistake too, right? And then I see like other YouTubers that are doing it as well, and I think, okay, well, maybe it's fine, right? Like I see Voscoin doing it or whatever it may be, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this project's vetted right. And then inevitably, because I didn't stick to my principles, right? And I ran that one ad, and then I put users at risk, people that view the channel, I put myself at risk, and I failed there, right? Luckily, I corrected it during the bull cycle, and I'm glad I did, because this is what's happening now. We have leaked documents showing that BlockFi lost more than $285 million in the past 2 years of the bull market. So read the second thread on BlockFi where Otter throws a challenge to BlockFi's CEO, but he says, here's BlockFi's income statement is real bad. It's a mess of negative numbers. And then he said, let's dig into it together. So here's the big takeaways: negative operating income, wallet asset and yield assets, institutional versus retail trading volume, trading revenue forecast, unsustainable interest rate, low provision of credit losses, and investors' abandonment. So let's get through each one of these. One, negative operating income. Operating income in the past 2 years alone, well, they lost $63.9 million in 2020 and $221.5 million in 2021. Don't forget that in 2020, Bitcoin price started at 6,000. It went to an all-time high of 69,000 during 2021. So it was an absolute bull run. Yet how does BlockFi manage to be so unprofitable in a bull market? Do we others really think that BlockFi can perform much better in a bad bear market? And do we think that BlockFi can eke out a profit with Bitcoin at 19K when they couldn't with Bitcoin was much higher? Two, wallet asset yields and wallet assets and yield assets. BlockFi data shows that the wallet assets in 2021 had $467 million and yield assets $13.5 million, I think is what that is, right? Or is that, yeah, it has to be. Does this mean that as of the end of 2021, BlockFi only had 3.4% of its funds in its wallet and the rest has been loaned or invested out? Need clarification. If he has understood correct, assuming that every BlockFi user has the same amount of money deposited, only the first 34 people out of 1,000 can get their funds back immediately. Everyone else has to wait until BlockFi unwinds their losing position to be able to withdraw funds. So what are we expecting here? Well, we're essentially expecting the same thing that happened with Celsius to eventually happen to BlockFi, right? A pause of withdrawals on BlockFi. Losing positions because Bitcoin has dropped 40K in the past 7 months. Hedge funds have imploded to zero. I'm pretty sure most positions are underwater, 80% sure. This is what happened to Celsius Network, there you go, and Babel Finance, two companies with similar business models as BlockFi. The first few people who withdrew will sleep soundly tonight. Those who have not withdrawn will pray to their gods every night. 3, institutional versus retail trading volume. BlockFi is somewhat different from Celsius in that BlockFi has large institutional funds. From the data, we can see BlockFi trading volume breakdown, retail 70% and institutions 30%. Assuming that the assets under management follow a similar mix, BlockFi assets could be reasonably assumed to be 70% from retail and 30% from institutions. And he says, recall when Luna and UST were crashing, institutions such as VCs and hedge funds who operate closer to the company got to cash out first, while retail was left holding the bags. Why is this important? This is important because they can only allow those first 34 people out of the 1,000, right? That's 3.4%, but they have 30% from institutions. That's the issue that we run into. Specific to Luna and UST, he wonders why humans cash out their VCs and hedge funds friends first. He thinks that it's because they are whales. Cashing out the whales that funded your risky venture so that in the next cycle they are willing to fund you again. If you're a retail user like you and me, there is no such privilege. Entrepreneurs and executives never meet retail. There are no faces to the retail users. They represent only numbers on an income statement. Crypto VC, crypto hedge funds, whales, and project leaders, on the other hand, fly out together to conferences and wine and dine project leaders. Who do you think will get the withdrawal first when things go south? Them or you? Just a thought, he says. Maybe the blockchains work only for insiders on weekends and public holidays, but not for retail. This is speculation, of course, and just his muse, so not what he was thinking is going on at BlockFi or Nexo or any other CeFi lenders. But you start to see the problem, right? Here's enough, he says, enough speculation. Let's get into the income statements. Number 4, trading revenue forecasts. From 2022 to 2023, BlockFi accountants forecast that retail trading revenue will 4x and institutional trading revenue will 3x. Well, forecasting that can be more art than science at times, especially if the figures are used to go and persuade investors to invest more in them. Bitcoin and just about every altcoin is worth much less now, so it would be a miracle to maintain the trading revenue, much less than 3x. Don't forget that if you trade Bitcoin in a bull market at 60,000, they earn more fees than when you trade the same Bitcoin in a bear market at 20,000. The forecasters probably didn't expect such a horrible bear market. Now, in bear market, we ought to reconsider those claims. Another fishy item is even though institutions' assets are 30% of BlockFi's books, it only provided 3% of the revenue. This could mean that either BlockFi is overcharging retail clients or BlockFi is not a preferred place by institutions to trade. So the argument that BlockFi is safer than Celsius because of their institutional business is simply not theoretically sound. He thinks that it actually jeopardizes retail more to be in the same ship as institutions, as they are more connected to teams than you, 50% certain. 5, unsustainable interest rates. In 2021, BlockFi paid out $400 million of interest to users and institutions that has lent their coins to BlockFi. However, their lending protocol revenue was $313 million. That's a whole of $87 million. In other words, BlockFi main business loses $240,000 a day. Same for the year before. Their bread and butter lending business lost BlockFi $14 million. In 2022, their accountants expect them to lose further $104 million, equal to losing $285,000 a day. So he says he's unsure if this is a result of unstrategic or strategic decision to make massive losses year after year for market share, 20% certain, or the CeFi lending business model is simply failed one. I'm leaning towards the CeFi business model as a failed one personally. Let me know what you guys think. Low provision of credit losses number 6, low provision of credit losses. When BlockFi managers take retail coins and relend them out, it is industry expectation that some loans will default. In that event, companies set aside an amount that they are prepared to lose, which is called the provision of credit loss, or a POCL. For this year of 2022, somehow Hopium chain smoking CFO. Oh, Otter, you're so funny. Decided not to set aside a provision for credit losses. So you're going into a bear market and you don't set aside for provision, for a provision of losses, which is wild to me because anybody that's been in cryptocurrency for at least one halving cycle, speaking of which, maybe they haven't been, right? Would be prepared for some sort of decrease, at least down to the previous halving cycle's all-time high, right? That's what you would expect this year to be bad, right? That's just what you would do based on the history of crypto. So it says the company probably built up a chest of POCL over the years, and the accountants decided not to set aside funds this year for credit loss. In fact, if he is reading it correctly, they have decided to draw down $3.5 million from the credit loss provision fund this year. In a year when counterparties like 3AC and other funds are blowing up spectacularly, it is exactly the year such a provision fund is needed. 7, investors' abandonment. So he has seen enough. The income statement has confirmed a lot of what he has expected. And he says, no surprise that investors are not ponying up funds for BlockFi, even when they lowered their valuation 3x. So what does all the numbers mean for us? First, remove your coins from all CeFi lenders. We've been telling you guys this for a while. We remain through the principles, through the bear market, telling you, of course, primarily, not your keys, not your crypto, don't keep them in here, that sort of thing. And this is why through a bull run, we preach these things, because when we get to this inevitability of the cycle, of the halving cycle, I can go back and say, what did I tell you guys, right? What did I tell you? What did I tell you every show? Not your keys, not your crypto. Pull it out of these centralized exchanges, out of these centralized finance options, these centralized DeFi options, or however they want to present them to you, and make sure you control them. Be safe and keep your generational wealth in a cold wallet. Abandon yield and eat the penalties, if any. If earn 12% a year yield and remove the funds for 1 month, you only lose 1% of lost profit. If you are unlucky enough to be in a CeFi lender that goes to zero, you will need so much time and yield to yield it back. Makes zero math sense to keep your funds in CeFi lenders now. Later, perhaps. Then that is a fair point. You could, in theory, when you're ready for the bull run, but it's going to be the same thing as trading, right? It's sketchy. But during a bull run, you participate in these CeFi, and then when crypto hits an all-time high, you pull that out, right? You pull it out of the CeFi at that point, and you just play it safe. That's a possibility. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'll still tell you to control your keys. And then he says, like and retweet the tweet. I have it linked down below. I think this was a great coverage, and I think that it's very important as it pertains to BlockFi and the mining community, because I am aware of a lot of other mining cryptocurrency YouTubers that promoted BlockFi and mining directly to the wallet, including myself for one ad that we ran a while ago. And I make my apologies for making a mistake there. Like I said, I think, like, obviously in the bull market, we changed that. So we had already corrected that in the past, but I want to bring it up again because that was a mistake that I made that I think is very, very relevant to bring up right now. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Morning Show every Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. Pacific and 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check out more clips here, or if you're interested in checking out the entire live show, you can check that out down here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.